Pringles are great, but not when they're made of cardboard. As Magic players, most of us are familiar with the curling effect that often happens to foiled cards. There's perpetual discourse on the subject, with some foiled out decks even being disqualified from tournaments because of, well, the inconsistency or even predictability that the curling of foils can cause. At MagicCon Vegas 2024, so just this last year, there was a vendor at the con that was advertising this product that can uncurl your foils. And ever since then, I've really been wanting to try it out. And so today, we're going to. So it's time for science. Okay, we don't actually do this.
You are now entering the Nerd House. Welcome to the Geekdom.
The product of MagicCon was called Integra Boost, which I have here. In essence, it helps control the humidity to help it reach its perfect velocity for uncurling and keeping things flat. Fun fact, it's actually the changes in humidity that cause the curling of foils in the first place. I'm sure there's a more in-depth sciencey explanation than that that I can provide, but I am definitely not the person to go into that. Maybe we can convince our resident magic scientist, Anna Margaret, to make a video about it sometime. Anyway, these basically work like those little humidity packets that you find in all sorts of products. So I've seen them in like shoes and jerky and like medicine, like anything that needs to stay like a specific humidity to preserve it from going bad. Like you've probably seen those little salt crystal packet thingies before. And so this is basically what those are, but these are marketed specifically for trading cards. But no good science experiment is of any use without something good to compare it to. So I also have these humidity packet controller thingies that were also recommended to me as good for trading cards. Before we begin the experiment, let's chat really quick about the price points between these. I ordered the Integra Boost packets directly from their website. These are two-way humidity control with 65% RH 8-gram size. A pack of 6 was $11.99, which makes the price per unit about $2 each. Not terrible, but not great. Especially when you take into account that I paid almost another $10 for shipping, which almost doubles that PPU. But these do come with like a little replacement indicator thingy, so we actually know when these are no good and we need to change them, which seems kind of handy. These other ones, the brand is called Boveda, or Boveda, I don't know how to pronounce it. They're also two-way humidity control with 62% RH 8-gram size, so a bit less RH than the other ones. This one came in a 10-pack and was $16.41 on Amazon, so free shipping with my Prime benefits. So that's about $1.64 PPU. However, these ones don't come with the little replacement indicator things, so I guess we just kind of have to guess when they're no longer good anymore. So now, let's experiment. I have an array of sadly curled foils here, and we're going to try a few different tests. So we're going to be testing all sorts of things here. We're going to be testing singular cards with and without sleeves, and then multiple cards with and without sleeves, because I'm also curious of how a card being sleeved may affect how long it takes and how effective these various products are, okay? So test number 1 is actually going to use a singular card in a sleeve. And then this one will have the Integra Boost. So we're gonna put our sadly curled Mirrodin foil chrome mox with our Integra Boost. So we're gonna put the Integra Boost packet in first. We're gonna very carefully and gently put our chrome mox in there. And then we have our little replacement indicator thing in there as well. I'm gonna put it in the back, and then we're gonna seal it up. So it's nice and airtight, and more air and humidity can't really get in there. Okay, so there's our chrome mox. I feel like I just trapped like a caterpillar in here and it's going to like suffocate and die. I'm terrified. Continuing test number 1, we have our super foiled, beautiful mana confluence here that we are gonna be testing the Boveda with. So we're gonna put the Boveda packet in here. And then our sleeved up mana confluence. And of course, we seal it so it's completely airtight. Voila! And we now have bottled mana confluence. For test number 2, we're going to be using a non-sleeved singular card with the Integra Boost packet. Okay, so let's put our packet and indicator thingy in our airtight jar, and then we'll very carefully put our super curled foil in said jar. Let's kind of tilt it a little, and now let's seal it. Voila. And we're gonna do the same thing, just a singular non-sleeved card, but this time with the Boveda. I don't know. So we have the packet in there and the card. And now we have the unsleeved to compare to the sleeved. Test number 3 is going to be a few cards that are in sleeves with the Integra. So, multiple sleeved cards. And then multiple sleeved cards with the Boveda. So multiple sleeved cards with Integra and Boveda. And our final tests are going to be multiple unsleeved cards with each of the two. So we have our Integra Boost with our multiple unsleeved cards. And we have our multiple unsleeved cards with Boveda. Integra and Boveda. It'll take a few days for all of these to kind of get settled and flattened out, so I will come back on here in a few days to give updates as they exist. I should also add that I do live in the Bayish northern area of California, and so it is a little bit more humid here in general. I'm a little bit more central to the state, so I'm not right on the coast. I don't have tons of humidity, but I do have a decent amount of humidity where I live. Especially considering I used to live in Utah where there's like no humidity ever and it's super dry. And I have noticed that since moving to California, my foils definitely curl a lot less here than they did in Utah. Who'd have thought that cards needed to be slightly wet? Alright, it has been about 24 hours since we have put our cards into their temporary scientific rehabilitation prisons, and let's see how they're faring. So we have test 1, test 2, test 3, and test 4, and we have Integra in the front and then Boveda in the back. So our Chrome Mox is actually looking quite a bit more flat. This is the one with a singular card and a sleeve. And the Mana Confluence is also looking significantly flatter already with the Boveda. So far that seems to be working, especially considering it's only been 24 hours. That's pretty great. And then these are our singular non-sleeved cards. This is looking so much better. Again, I know it's really hard to tell since they're like in the bottles, but they're almost flat already. I do think the ones that are out of the sleeve are significantly flatter than the ones in sleeves. So I do think that that's kind of interesting. And then here we have test 3. This is the multiple cards in sleeves. Again, these are also looking a lot flatter so far. And then again, the Boveda, same story, looking a lot flatter. And then again, multiple cards with no sleeves, also looking quite flat now. So I thought that this was gonna take like 3 to 4 days, but honestly, this might be done. Like some of these might be done by tomorrow or even the next day. This is crazy. I love how quickly it's taking. So more updates on day 2 tomorrow. Welcome to day 6 of our experiment. There weren't really any tangible noticeable changes on days 3, 4, or 5, which is why I didn't really record anything for them. The most changes that we saw were actually within the first 24 hours, and they've kind of just been very, very slowly just getting slightly flatter than they were, but really not a huge difference. The biggest changes I've seen have actually been between the sleeved cards and the non-sleeved cards. The non-sleeved cards have surprisingly gotten much flatter, much quicker. Some of the sleeved cards still aren't completely flat yet. As far as differences between the Integra versus the Boveda, I just looking through the jars, I can't really see much of a difference, but we're about to open up the jars and take a closer look to see what we can find out. So let's take a look. All right, so here is our little science experiment. We have all of the Integras in the front and all the Bovedas in the back. Let's open them up. So as I mentioned before, the ones in the sleeves definitely aren't working at getting flat as easily as the ones out of the sleeves. So our monoconfluence is definitely a lot flatter than it was, but our chrome mox still isn't very flat. It's a little bit flatter, but not too much. So we're actually going to take these out of the sleeves, put them back in their respective jars, and let them sit for a few more days just to see what happens. But they are both significantly more flat. You can kind of see that the sleeves got a little warped, so the humidity is definitely doing something to the sleeves at least. But the cards themselves not doing as great. So back into the bottles they go, but we're gonna take the sleeves off. Alright, but our unsleeved ones, that's where the biggest changes have occurred. Alright, so here is our Integra. It's very flat now. I know it's hard to tell in the palm of my hand, but I'll show them on the desktop in a minute. Both of these cards were very curled before, and now they are very flat. Looking at these, I do think the one that was in the Boveda is a lot flatter. Again, I'll show them on the desktop in just a bit when we're looking at some of the other ones as well. Alright, so next was our multiples that were sleeved. So again, these are all definitely a lot more flat than they were, but still not completely flat. So just like our other ones, we're gonna take all of these out of their sleeves. These ones are the Boveda. So here on the left, we have our Integra, and here on the right, we have our Boveda. Again, there's not really a discernible difference between them as to which ones are more flat. So it's really just a toss-up. They're now unsleeved and going back into the jar. And then our multiples that are unsleeved. So again, the ones that are out of sleeves are definitely a lot more flat than the ones in sleeves. So these are our Integras. And these are our Bovedas. So all of these are definitely lying significantly flatter. So let's take a look at these on the actual desktop. So over here on our left, we have the ones that were in the Boveda jars. And they are very, very flat. I mean, there's still a slight curl to them, so I could probably leave them in the jars longer and maybe that'll eventually fully go away, but these are definitely flat now. I would consider these flat. And then over here we have our Integras. Integra, I still don't know how to pronounce it. These ones are definitely a lot flatter than they were, but I do think that these are slightly more curled than the Bovedas. Keep in mind that there was a slight RH difference in the percentage of RH between the Integra and the Boveda, with the Boveda having a little bit more. So that little bit more RH may have actually, that just 3% may have actually made a difference. I'm sure that maybe if we left these in a little longer, maybe they would look a bit more like the Bovedas, a bit more flat. But as far as just like after 6 days, I think we can conclusively say that the ones in the Boveda jars are more flat than the ones in the Integra jars. So long-term wise, I'm not sure how it'll turn out, but at least short-term wise, the Boveda is doing better than the Integra, which is great considering the Boveda were certainly a lot cheaper than the Integra. I'll do another video update in a few days to determine how our now unsleeved cards fare, and eventually I'll probably do some experiments using like Dragon Shield type sleeves, so like outer sleeve cards rather than like penny sleeves, just to see if the different type of sleeve also makes a difference, because I'm sure it would. But as far as these 6 days have shown us, we can see that the sleeved cards definitely uncurl slower. If they are in there for more time, it's possible that they will fully uncurl, but I am impatient and I want to get this video out sooner, so I will continue doing these experiments behind the scenes and I'll give you updates eventually. But for now, we can at least know that putting the cards unsleeved, they will be quicker to uncurl. Seems that way anyway. And it also seems that the Boveda ones are presently more effective at more quickly uncurling and flattening the foils than the Integra. Which is fascinating because the Boveda, they're not advertised for like TCG cards. They're just like generic humidity control packets, whereas the ones that are specifically advertised for it aren't working quite as well. So it's not that they're not working, they're just not working as quickly. And I'll definitely make another update video on what happens with our unsleeved ones eventually, but for now, we'll at least have some information moving forward. I'm still going to use up the remaining Integra boosts that I have. I'll probably throw a few in my deck boxes since that's what they're primarily advertised for, is putting them in binders and deck boxes. And that's kind of where like the little indicator thingies will be the most helpful. But as far as like putting my cards into containers to uncurl things, I'll probably use the Bovedas. And once my Integras are out, I'll probably continue using the Bovedas. But as I conduct more experiments and let more time lapse with these, we'll see if my opinion changes. But for now, Boveda great. Yes, I think it's great anyway. And Integra, it works. It works. I just wish it wasn't expensive. Tell me what you all think. Were these results more or less what you expected? Was there anything you were surprised by? Are there any other products that you've used to uncurl your foils that have been effective? Or if you've done some of these science experiments yourself, let me know what you found out. Thanks for joining me for some magic science!